you find a struggling company, you inject money, it becomes yours. You used to see Tumaini. You don't see it anymore. You don't see it anymore. Because this Sokoni, after acquiring, injecting capital, it is a leverage buyout. So Tumaini, how much money are you worth now? 10 billion. Here it is. And therefore, Adenia becomes the owner. In Kenya, they trade by the name Sokoni. You normally see it, Sokoni Retail. They took over that. And 1 year later, they acquired Quickmart by injecting private equity. That was 2019. You know, the founder of Quickmart, John Kinothia, relinquished control. What does that tell you? It tells you that the amount of capital they injected in Quickmart is higher than what the founder, John Kinothia, had put. So the minute the shareholding goes up from the one who has injected the private equity, then you lose control, which means you can't even appoint a manager, which means the company now is run by Adenia or the Sokoni Retail Kenya. So when you look around, you see Quickmart expanding very fast. But little do people know it is expanding because of private equity that is coming from elsewhere. Private equity that is coming from Mauritius. So some institutional investors in Mauritius and high net worth individuals in Mauritius, they put their money in Adenia. Now this Adenia has come to Kenya and acquired, Tumaini is gone, and acquired Quickmart. So with good capital injections, then you find Quickmart capturing the market very quickly, moving to having several branches. 2014, what do you see? Actis. You know, I talked of there are several private equity firms that are very active in Africa, but they are not based in Africa. One of them is Actis. They injected money into Auto Express. Yeah? I'm sure you see around Auto Express those service stations. They even sell tires. You can see in 2014, after the injection of private equity, they were able to increase the number of branches to 56 and to move to 4 countries. They are now in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. So, fast forward to 2022, another private equity firm, Africa Invest, and IFC again, bought that 6% in Auto Express from Actis. So this Actis now reduces shareholding. It now goes with the World Bank IFC. But you can see they are still growing. The number of branches you see around from Auto Express is many. I take you back to the year 2000. What happened? IFC invested 41 million in Kipevu power plant. It is based somewhere in the coast. And by IFC injecting this kind of money, they signed a contract of 20 years. 20 years. 20 years are now over, I think. Yeah, they are now over. Maybe they have renewed with Kenya Power. Yeah. To generate electricity using generators, diesel. This is the Kipevu 2 power project. I think it's somewhere in Lamu. 2021, IFC gives 1.75 million loan to KCB. It is private equity now injected into KCB, but in the form of a debt. I said it can be a combination or it can be either. And this money was supposed to be lent to SMEs that are involved in climate-friendly projects. Of course, to resuscitate these SMEs post-COVID. So, these are some of the scenarios that we have witnessed on private equity injections around in Kenya. And you think that the company is doing very well on their own. No. It is as a result of private equity. Let's see the world's largest private equity firms. The list is wrong. I'm not going to cover many, but I'll bring to your attention one which is already investing in Kenya, known as BlackRock, which started in 1988 with 8 people who sat in a single room. You know, that's how you come up with ideas. 8 people sat in a room and said, okay, suppose we start a private equity firm, we pool resources, not from ourselves, from others, and invest on their behalf. That's how it started in 1988. And it was listed at the New York Stock Exchange in 1999. This is through an IPO for $14 per share. Now this private equity firm, BlackRock, you can see the assets under management. Assets under management. I take you back to the structure of private equity. I take you back here. Here. So that BlackRock becomes clear to you. See the general manager here. The general partner, the private equity fund with a manager. Now that is BlackRock. That is BlackRock. And BlackRock has assets under management. Now the assets under management is coming from where? Where is the assets under management coming from? From? Yes, this guy. This guy here. Yes. So where is the assets under management coming from? Can you be louder? He says it is coming from the portfolio investments. Someone else. Let me hear from. That is very good. It is coming from the limited partners, the institutional investors. So, anytime you read about a private equity firm, and then when you look at their profile, you see assets under management. Assets under management. They are managing assets from the limited partners, the institutional investors, and the high net worth individuals. Now, the BlackRock currently is managing $10.5 trillion. How much is that in Kenya shillings? Yes. Can you hear from, I can see the class rep is calculating. How much is that? She's calculating on your behalf. So how much is that? Huh? $10.5 trillion is how much? Is it 1,300 trillions? 1,300 trillions. Is it? Now with 1,300 trillions, how much is the Kenyan budget this year? You know, I want you to see the magnitude of the money that the private equity firm is holding. The magnitude, the amount of money that this private equity firm is holding and investing on behalf of institutional investors and the rich tycoons. You can see. And that money, the 1,300 trillion Kenya shillings, is now being invested in what he was saying, the different portfolios. So by March of this year, which is the first quarter of this year, 10.5 trillion assets under management. Yeah? How a firm that was started by 8 people in a single room, 1988, the kind of money they are controlling. It has 78 offices across 38 countries, clients over 100 countries, with a strong presence in US, Asia, Brazil, and the Middle East. Strong presence. It doesn't mean that it is not available in these other continents, but that is where the concentration is. Now, the largest institutional investors in BlackRock, I've listed them there. The reason why I've listed them there is to dispel the myth, what has been going around in the social media, that BlackRock, the investors are Cargill, those involved in GMO, that they are coming to Kenya to finance GMOs, that they are different companies that do not even exist among the institutional shareholders of BlackRock. But what is interesting is that Kenya is the first country in Africa where BlackRock has come to invest. You know, in just 1 year, in just 3 months, the first quarter of this year, BlackRock has made 3.6 billion, 3.63 billion. Just the first quarter of this year. And why? You can see that I've talked about monetary policy tightening in the major central banks globally. Those are the central banks. America one, we don't call it central bank, we call it the Federal Reserve Bank. But each of them has a monetary policy. And the EU countries have one central bank, known as the European Central Bank, which is headquartered in Frankfurt in Germany. UK is not part of it because they left Euro. So the monetary policy is just run by the Bank of England. And what we are saying here, why would the stock markets rally? You know, it means that the shares of the stocks have gone up. And these companies, you'll see that the private equity firms, they also invest in stocks. They buy shares. They buy shares. Through portfolio diversification. What is this monetary policy tightening? Anytime you see monetary policy tightening, it means increasing interest rates. There is an inverse relationship between the returns you get in the money market and the returns you get in the capital market, specifically the stock market. The stock market is always very happy and smiles when the interest rate in the money market goes down. That's what we are saying. The relaxation of the monetary policy tightening, you see, which is also what we call expansionary monetary policy. So the interest rates go down. So you no longer want to invest in bonds and treasury bills because the interest rates have gone down. And what do? You take your money to the stock market. So that time we say there is a flow of funds. Flow of funds, money moving from the money market to the stock market. And because the shares now have performed well, BlackRock has made this kind of money in in the first quarter. So the assets under management surged by 15%. You can imagine what is 15% of $10.5 trillion. Something else I mentioned is that this general partner, the general partner, who is now the BlackRock, is getting 1 to 2% of management fee. So what would be 1% of 10.5 trillion? That would be billions of dollars. How many? Yes? How many billions? Okay. $105 billion. It looks small. The management fee looks small. 1%. But it is $105 billion. Convert that to Kenya shillings. You see what they will get as just the management fee. So what they are getting as management fee per year can run this country's budget several years. You know? I want you to figure out the reality. It looks small. But look at the magnitude of the money involved. I said that the first investment BlackRock did in Africa is in Kenya last year, when they invested in the Lake Turkana wind power. That is the first investment they have done in Africa. And remember that BlackRock has portfolio A to so many portfolios to invest. So within the BlackRock, they'll have one focus of the climate-related fund. And we are moving to green energy. So they have that 1.3% shareholding of this Lake Turkana wind farm. And of course, I have indicated there where they acquired from the Norfund, the Finnish, the Danish. If you go to Turkana, most of the structures, including the government offices, were built by Norland. It is the Scandinavian countries that invest there. And the other point you need to know is that this wind power, the energy generated, was connected to the national grid in 2018. And it accounts for 14% of our energy consumption. So the money that is paid by Kenya Power to this Lake Turkana, BlackRock is getting that 1.3%. And then at the end of the year, distributing that to the institutional investors and the tycoons. And if it is beyond the hurdle rate, which we talked about, they also get the performance the performance fee. Something else you need to know is that the Lake Turkana is the largest in Africa, the wind power. I've just talked about when it was connected. 2024, I have heard stories that BlackRock is interested in investing in shares in our stock market. But I have not seen the statistics so far. I have not seen. So I only know that they have invested in the wind farm. But note that they are not only investing in Kenya, they are also in India. I've indicated the April, which is last month. They acquired that company in India. And also they have acquired that other company in Australia. So they are not just involved. They are basically spread. They are basically spread. But the first investment they have done in Africa is in Kenya.